Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha Vasudeva sutam devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnan Vande Jagat Gurum. So today we will start the fourth chapter of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. In the last class, we just had a synopsis of the entire chapter. Now we will enter into the slokas, sloka by sloka, the verse by verse. We will try to go to the explanation of the fourth chapter of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. So the first three slokas of the fourth chapter, it speaks of the lineage of yoga as propounded in Bhagavad Gita. So the idea of parampara is very significant in the Vedic tradition, in the Hindu tradition. Parampara, that the spiritual knowledge has to be transmitted from the teacher to the disciple. Nowadays, in the age of media, everything is available in the internet. And when we resort to that type of knowledge, sometimes we do feel that we are progressing spiritually. But Swami Vivekananda have very emphatically stressed that know it for certain, that when you are resorting to the scriptures by reading, or in the present day through media, you may have the feeling that you are progressing spiritually, but it is actually just the clearing of your intellectual, this intellect. The intellect gets cleared. You have the understanding of the scriptures through the reading. But this real enkindling of the spiritual knowledge, that happens only through the tradition, from Guru to the Shishya. So this is very important. In one word, he was mentioning that it is only the lamp which enkindles the lamp. So this is something which is very important, and that's the thing which will be stressed. The importance of this parampara will be stressed in the first three verses of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the fourth chapter. So the first verse, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Imang Vivasvate Yogam Praktavan Aham Avyayam Vivaswan Manave Praha Manur Ikshaku Eva Abravit. So, what's the idea? This Imang Vivashyate Yogam. So, we found that in the third chapter, Bhagavan has already indicated a way of life. Is practice Swadharma and then try to practice self-control as per as the manifested desires are concerned, and resort, and then also to have a long-term effect in your spiritual life, resort to contemplation on yourself. And if you're a devotee, on the idea, the Parameshwar is the self of yourself, the Paramatma, contemplate on the self. And this three together can take you to the highest rung of the spiritual evolution. Swadharma helps you to cleanse your mind, to attenuate your so-called the desires, the basal instincts, because when you are doing the work which you like, with the work which you have chosen as your profession, that is Swadharma, when you're doing it wholeheartedly, with full focus, and with performance-oriented, not result-oriented, that let me do it perfectly. Jan sadhan tan siddhi. That when I'm doing some work, Let me forget about all ideals, all goals in my life. To do it perfectly is my only goal. When I am washing the utensils, there is no God, nothing. Let us forget everything. Just do it with full concentration, full focus. That's my only objective at this moment. So what it speaks of? It speaks of focus. That your mind, which is always distracted, you can develop a wonderful focus by being always focused in your work. Many say work is a distraction. Work becomes a distraction when I am thinking of certain other goals. Oh, I cannot do my meditation. This work is coming on the way. I forget this work itself can become a preparation for my contemplation. It itself is in contemplation. And throughout the day, what I do, that's the state of my mind. If I'm agitated throughout my day with my work, in my work, I cannot keep my mind at peace, cannot keep it focused. And I think in the evening, I will go back to my home and sit for meditation, and immediately I will get to meditation. It's impossible. Whatever I'm doing, if I try to practice that focus, that mindfulness, it becomes a preparation. It itself is a meditation, and it becomes a preparation from some higher meditation. So be focused in your work, and the mind at a time cannot have more than one thought. It can never do multitasking. It is constantly jumping from thought to thought. When I'm multitasking, I think I'm taking care of so many things, but it never happens. The mind is just switching off from one activity to the other activity at a very fast pace, giving me an impression that I'm taking care of all the activities at a time. But it never happens. I'm doing it at the cost of the quality, because the mind is constantly switching off from one activity to the other when I'm multitasking. So it can never multitask. It's always can have only one thought at a time. If that's the fact, when I'm totally focused with my work, my mind is bound to get freed from all other distractions. That creates that focus. And that way I attenuate my so-called other basal instincts. But I'm not working throughout the day. I do have moments of leisure when my mind do have the tendency to again jump back to its original way of life, just making me jump from one distraction to other, from one sensual engagement to the other. And there, whatever desires are manifested in the mind, now you have to stop and face the brutes. We can never run away from them. You have to face them. The moment when Swami Vivekananda was in Kashi as a wandering monk, he was traveling there. He was in Kashi. He went to the Durga temple. And when he came out from the Durga temple, he was just moving out. The way out from the Durga temple is a very narrow road. On one side, there used to be a reservoir, and on the other side, there used to be a wall. So you cannot run sideways. There's only that narrow road and quite long. And suddenly, when Swamiji was passing through that road, he realized something is behind him. He found a pack of monkeys is chasing him. Now he got scared. Suddenly seeing so many monkeys chasing him, he started running. The monkeys also started running after him. They were almost on his heels, about to scratch him. And then suddenly he heard some very old senior monk from a distance shouting, "Stop, face the brutes. Stop, face the brutes." Hearing that, Swamiji stopped. He turned around, faced the pack of monkeys, and a wonderful thing happened. The monkeys which were chasing, they also stopped. They were just staring at each other for some time, and then they started receding back. Swami Vivekananda, just reminiscing this incident, has in his lecture have mentioned that I learned a big lesson of my life. That stop, face the brutes, don't run away. So that's the way, face them. If you find any emotions, desires which is arising in your mind, it has two aspects. What are the aspects? Either it is being fed by the past. You cannot just simply remain in one thought, in one emotion, unless it is being fed by the past. Something happened in my office. I had some fight with my boss or with my colleague. That anger is raging. When you're sitting, what is happening? You're again and again recollecting what has happened. You're going to the past. Or you're anticipating in future. When tomorrow I go back, today I couldn't reply him properly. These are the replies I will give him. Tomorrow, nicely I will say. So what you're doing, you're either, your emotion is fed by the past or it is fed by the future. So the entire practice of mindfulness to deal with any of the desire is to be in the present. Just say, I am not running away from you. I am facing you, but at the same time, I won't allow you to be fed by the past or to be fed by the future. I won't allow to nourish you. Let you be with me. I'm not running away from you. I'm just with you. You will find that the emotions are evaporating gradually. It calms down. So that's the way we have to deal with all the desires which are bubbling up. But the third thing is another which has a long-term effect. In our life, we will find that in my mind, there are so many things. They're not all manifesting at one time. As per the circumstances in which I am placed, suddenly some desires which were lurking behind, which were not visible, suddenly getting the favorable circumstances, they become visible. Now, such innumerable desires are there. Through my past innumerable births, I don't know how many such samskaras I have gathered. They're innumerable. How can I deal with them one by one? In infinite time also, it is not possible. So what's the way out? Now, we will find that all the desires are hooked to the idea of this limited sense of individuality. That I am this body-mind complex. With this, all are hooked, all the ideas. With the idea that you are this limited individuality, the question comes that if I am this body-mind complex, then my existence is dependent on the existence of this body-mind complex. This is the basic ignorance. From this ignorance comes this asmita, this ego. And from that, all the emotions which we develop, the basis of all the emotions is raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Whatever is good for this limited existence, I develop attachment, that is raga. And whatever is harmful, I develop fight or flight response. If it is something which I can get rid of, I fight. And if I cannot get it, I run away. This is dvesha, abhinivesha. So, and these are the root cause of all the attachments, all the likes and dislikes, innumerable they are, I have developed through the entire passage of time. So all are hooked with the ego. Now the long-term sadhana, spiritual practice is what? That whatever we do, whether I am repeating the name of my Ishta, what's the idea? My Lord is, I am. Not as this body-mind complex. Even when I am not here, is as this body-mind complex, I still exist as the Atman, as the soul. And I am eternally related with that Paramatman. So this eternal communion with the divine, no one can snatch away it from me. I'm always eternally connected. So this is the idea, whatever, if you are a bhakta or if you are a jnani, the same thing, that I am the self. I am the self. All this body-mind complex is just something which I am witnessing. They are flowing. I am not in the flow. I am sitting apart from the flow, watching the flow. So that real me is eternal. It has nothing to do with this body-mind complex. So when you are meditating, whatever may be the form of meditation, and all this meditation do have the idea of repetition of the same idea again and again in your mind. And that is like hammering to the idea of that limited sense of individual, the ego. It is with this ego, all these desires, innumerable desires, some are manifested, some are not manifested, but they all are hooked to that ego. By hammering the ego, when that ego gets weakened, I can remove that. Our personality, as we always give a simile, is like a wheel where it has a hub and where innumerable spikes. If one or two spikes break, the wheel is still intact. What's the way I can get rid of the wheel? Take out the hub. All the spikes fall together. The vyakta, avyakta vasana. I don't have to take care of them one by one. Then why that second step was required? For calming down the mind. The desires which are disturbing me, if I don't take care of them through mindfulness. If you see in the process of meditation which we are doing, first we thought by practicing mindfulness, then we went to the focus. The idea is the same thing, that first calm down the mind through that mindfulness, then focus to hammer out the idea of the ego, and that ultimately can take you to that ultimate spiritual illumination, where you go beyond the idea of this limited self and you become one with that absolute idea of the non-dual consciousness. The Atman merges in the Brahman. So that's the idea, which in the third chapter, Bhagavan has made a comprehensive idea of the spiritual practice. Now the question is it self-styled? That now Arjuna doesn't want to go to the war, and Bhagavan is somehow trying to motivate him to face this battle. Is it just to make him face the battle, he's brainwashing him with all those ideas? Or do these ideas really have some tradition? Why the tradition is important? Just the way we patent the medicine, that way the tradition. What the tradition speaks of, that it has been practiced through ages. And it's what you say, the outcome has been materialized, manifested through the Guru Shishya Parampara. Many have attained illumination by adopting this as the way of life. So if I know that, just the way we patent a medicine, a particular medicine, when I just someone has found out in the laboratories, have discovered a medicine, particular medicine, first it has to be patented, first it has to go through the case studies. If it cures one person, it's not well enough, there is not sufficient proof that it can really be effective for all. There has to be 100 case studies where the percentage of success should be above 80%, 90%. Then only you can say that this medicine can be sold out in the market. Then only it can be patented. So here, Bhagavan is saying that what I'm saying is not something I have self-devised. It is having through the experimentation. It's a patented knowledge that way. So what's that he's saying? Imang vivashvate yogam praktavan aham avyayam vivaswan manave praha manur ikshvavake brabrit. So what's the idea? The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is saying, what he's saying, Sri Bhagavan, that I taught this eternal science of yoga. Imang vivasvate yogam praktavan aham avyayam. This knowledge is avyaya, eternal. What's the idea of this eternal knowledge is? That whether we know it or not, knowledge is eternal. Sometimes we may be ignorant about it, but the knowledge is there. As Swami Vivekananda, while describing the Hinduism, while giving the lecture, reading the paper on Hinduism in Chicago, there's this idea that we say the Veda is apaurushaya, that no person has written the Vedas. It has not devised by some important person. It is eternal. The knowledge is eternal. Apaurushaya. It's not authored by someone. What's the idea? But we know the rishis have authored it. They have written the slokas. How can you say it is apaurushaya? So Swami Vivekananda is giving a very rational explanation that before Newton, the gravitation was. It's not that after Newton, the gravitation came into existence. It was. What Newton did, he just discovered, removed the cover over the knowledge. Discovery means that there is a cover of ignorance over certain knowledge. You discover, you remove the cover. The knowledge was there. So rishis, what they did, this knowledge which is in the Vedas, it is apaurushaya. All the rishis were humble enough to accept the fact that this knowledge is not something of which I am the author. It is there. Through contemplation, these are the truths which we have discovered. So the knowledge is eternal, apaurushaya. It is there. It is only being discovered by someone and through succession. That what Newton discovered, that even a school child knows now. It has came through the succession, that knowledge. The same thing Bhagavan is speaking. This knowledge is avyaya. It is there. And Bhagavan himself, at the beginning of creation, imparts this knowledge to the recipients who are capable of realizing that knowledge through their life and again transmitting it in succession. So to whom he this first gave this knowledge, so he gives this knowledge to this Vivaswan. Vivaswan is the sun, the Surya, the God. So that we know that in this earth, the source of our existence is the sun. So it is the sun from which our existence is derived every day. Nothing can be thought of apart from sun. It is the sun which is its energy is finding expression through all animate and inanimate things which I see in this world. So I imparted that knowledge to the sun. The sun again imparted this knowledge to Manu. Very interesting. From Manu, the word Manav came. And in English, the word man. But when Swami Vivekananda was delivering a lecture in the West, after he describing the story that he told that all the religions have almost same type of mythology. That, the Noah's Ark, the story which we have, that there was a flood, and then all sorts of species was collected by the Noah in the boat, and when the flood subsided, again he just peopled the entire earth, and the world was again populated from all the species which he has gathered. Similar type of story is there even in our Shastras, in our Puranas, where Manu, that when the Matsya avatar as a fish, the same story, almost the same story, that again we find that boat where Manu is the one who again populates the world. And after saying this story, that all the mythology have the same origin, Swamiji is saying that as we are the descendant of Manu, we are all man. So see, the words are so similar, that Manava, man. So in the West, he's saying as we are the son of Manu, we are the Manava. So what's the idea? That Manu is the ancestor, is our, if we can go back, trace back, we find Manu is the one who is the progenitor of the entire humankind. So sun god transmitted it to Manu, and Manu transmitted it to Ikshvaku. Ikshvaku is the one from whom the lineage of the Surya dynasty, of which Bhagavan Rama, Sri Rama, is a king of that dynasty. So that's the dynasty of which was the first one from that dynasty is Ikshvaku. So Manu transmitted this knowledge to Ikshvaku. So this knowledge is a patented knowledge. It has a lineage to make Arjun be convinced about the fact that it is not something to instigate him to war. Krishna has devised something. Krishna, as a very good administrator, has devised something and is trying to somehow motivate Arjuna to take part in this war. It's not that. He's speaking from a lineage, and that lineage, he's the one who have originated. Now, naturally, Arjuna will have doubt that he is my contemporary, he is my friend, he is my sakha. And how can he who has taught the sun, the origin of creation at that time, when the creation was there, when the Lord is beyond all laws, but when he projects himself as this universe, that he projects through some form of Shakti, and that Shakti is bound by certain laws, rhythms. And that's the laws which he's imparting. So it goes on. It's just as the physical laws are there, like the laws of gravitation, magnetism, like all the spiritual laws are also something which we can never break. They're laws. If we can break laws, there are no more laws. In our attempt to break laws, we break ourselves. And that's why God has to incarnate again and again. So that whenever we become forgetful about those eternal values, to save us, to sustain the creation, he has to come down, to make us aware of those laws. Just the way I can never deny the law of gravitation. Can I just say I don't believe in gravitation and I jump out of a 20-story building and start flying? No. Whether I believe it or not, it is there. I'm going to have this crash. I will crash and I will die. It is just going to be with a fatal jump. Similarly, all these laws are there. And that has been devised by the divine. We as a humanity may forget now and then. With the passage of time, we forget, and God has to incarnate. The knowledge which He has imparted at the beginning of the creation, because of our forgetfulness, He has to come again and again to revive that knowledge. So now Arjuna is not aware of that. Just he's taking Krishna to be just an ordinary human being, his contemporary, at the most his friend who really wants his welfare. But how can he teach the sun god? That's the doubt which we will find Arjuna will have. But now the second sloka, Bhagavan is still continuing. What he's saying? Evam parampara, this word, this lineage. Parampara praptam imang rajar shayo vidu sakale neha mahata yoga nashta parantapa. So with the passage of time, just as we were speaking, is the knowledge which I have imparted at the very beginning of the creation, after creating these laws which is sustaining this creation, that I impart. But with the passage of time, they become diluted. They become distorted. Two things happen. It becomes diluted and becomes distorted. The dharma, which was the guiding force behind those instructions, we find that adharma dilutes it. That more and more adharma comes into existence and dharma gets dwindled. The dharma is dwindled, is diluted by adharma. So, but here in this verse, another word is very important. That is Rajarshayo. He imparted this knowledge to the Rajarshis. This Raja plus Rishi. This word is very important. It is not to the so-called recluse who has renounced all the activities and went for deep meditation. Not to them. This knowledge, if you have to deal with your entire life, you cannot just deal with a part of your life. That in this life, for our existence, for our sustenance, work is something which we cannot avoid. So I cannot simply just say that I just get rid of the work and I just meditate. It's impossible. For the social upliftment, for your own sustenance, work is something which is imperative. It has to be there. So if I have to take care of my life, I have to take care taking this work into account. Because there is no question of running away from life. Now, who are the Rajarshis? Raja plus Rishi is Rajarshi. That they have the highest responsibility. They are the most responsible, they are the busiest person in the society, constantly engaged in the upliftment of his own kingdom, of his own the denizens there. So he is the one who is taking care. He is highly responsible. But at the same time, he is Rishi. His power is not for, there's very nice Sanskrit verse in Mahabharata. They say that power gives mother. Mother means pride. With that comes exploitation. But the one who really knows to deal with that power, the opposite of mother, you just change the mother, it becomes Dhamma. Mother, Dhamma. So they take the power as the opportunity to exercise restraint, Dhamma. That I use the power for the welfare of all, not to exploit others. And this practice speaks of his own spiritual evolution as well as the upliftment of the entire society. So the one, who is the Rajarshi, for whom the power doesn't entail in mother, it entails in Dhamma. That how, that it can be an opportunity for me, all these responsibilities. So in that sense, that's the way that word yajna specifically means just the fire sacrifice, but it's in all encompassing sense, it means the law of interdependence which we find in nature. Similarly, the word Raja also specifically means the king. But if I take that as a sense of responsibility to relate to the world with my duties, with my responsibilities in a very, restrained manner. Instead of exploiting, I restrain myself so that it entails in the welfare of all, that it entails in Dhamma. So then we will find Raja, the idea of Raja can be extended everywhere. When the parent is dealing with the child, he becomes the Raja there. He have to deal with the power which he has over the children. The child is helpless. A child who is born is helpless. When the parent is dealing with the child, it is he who is as if the king for the child. But there again, we will have to find that without restraint, the human society becomes like an animal. Nowadays in the newspaper, you will find the parents are abusing their own children, becoming the cause of their death. That where the society has went, that in the name of my own pleasure, my own space, my everything, have become something worse than the animal. Have you seen any animal killing its own child, abusing its own child? Humans have started doing it. In the newspaper, every day you will find so many cases. It's extreme, that drive towards the sensual. We have become totally blind. As a human being, when we become blind, we are even worse than animals. So Raja idea is there, that whenever there's a responsibility, how you're dealing with that responsibility. Is it just to exploit others? Or are you practicing restraint so that it enables you, that work enables you to grow spiritually as well as do welfare to the others? Atman mokshartam jagat hitaya cha. So it is those person who has not ran away from life. They're dealing with the life. To them, such persons, God has something to impart. It is to them he imparted this knowledge. Rajarshis. To the Rajarshis. Not just a mere recluse who are trying to run away from life. To the Rajarshis, this knowledge was transmitted. O subduer of the enemies, there's Parantapa, that you have subdued the enemies, you have the power to subdue the enemies outside. But for Rajarshi, why this word Parantapa is used here? Because in Bhagavad Gita, every slok, every word has been selected in such a way, in that slok, it has some very deep inner meaning. That Arjuna can just be called as Arjuna or Mahabaho, but here he is calling us Parantapa, the subduer of enemies. The enemy is not there outside, enemy is within. That Dhamma has to be practiced, and then only you can be a responsible citizen. So that's the idea. So, O Parantapa, know it for certain, this is the knowledge which is coming through Parampara of the Rajarshis, all those who feel that they have some responsibility and to delegate, they have been delegated with some responsibility. They have some work to do. For them, this knowledge has been transmitted through me, but in the process of time, the idea behind it has been lost. Because why? Because in Shankaracharya, why this becomes nashta. Shankaracharya in his commentary is saying, Durvalan, that we as human beings are weak. As in the Bible it is mentioned, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So that's that our weakness speaks of compromising with the ideal. And gradually what happens, we'll find in the process of time, the idea, the principle has got diluted. The entire religion becomes a mass of practices, doctrines, dogmas, but the real idea they have lost. It is busy with all those practices, elaborate practices, and this lot of adharma starts creeping in. Why it happens? There's a nice story, the story of the Nasiruddin, the famous, So one day, some friend of Nasiruddin came to meet him. It's a very funny story. And the neighbors saw that some of his very close friend came to meet him and was his guest for a few days, for 1 or 2 days. So when he came, Nasiruddin bought a duck. He bought a duck. And he had a very nice duck soup. So that's the idea. There's a duck, he had a duck soup. So now for the friend, Nasruddin gave this treat. So when the friend went away, next day some neighbor came and told, I'm the friend of your friend, with the idea that I also need to be treated. I'm the friend of your friend. Nasruddin felt okay. So he was also treated with that duck soup, so-called duck soup. So now the next day again someone came, I'm the friend of your friend of your friend. So that bit went on. When someone came and told that I'm the friend, after the fifth or sixth day, I'm the friend of your friend of your friend of your friend, Nasruddin brought a huge bowl of this boiling water, hot water, and kept it in front of him. And I told, what's this? Is this the way you insult your guests? Well, no, sorry, sir. Actually, this is the soup of the soup of the soup of the soup of the duck, which I treated my friend. So that's what happens with our religion, with the passage of time. So it is the soup of the soup. So we gradually all this creeps in. And we find it becomes just a matter of lot of practices. We forget the principles. The stories are funny, but it do speak of this wonderful truth. There's another story I have heard, very interesting, that in a monastery, it was a tradition. Now, in a monastery, they're all vegetarians. They have nothing to do with a goat, but they always will have a goat. And that goat, they will, whenever they sit for meditation in the morning and the evening, whenever they sit for the meditation, they will tie that goat in a stump outside the meditation hall. They will tie the goat in a stump and then go and sit for meditation. And when someone asked, why this tradition? They told, it's parampara. It's parampara. It's from the old tradition. It's following. Our predecessors did it. Their predecessors did it. And that's the tradition. We don't know why, but we follow the tradition. And then a search was done, that research was done, that why this practice. And then they found long back, 3-4 generations back, this monastery actually had a huge farmland. And they used to cultivate the field. Now with passage of time, that the city has developed, so they have to sell away their properties. Only the monastery with that building is there. No more farmland is there. But when the farmland was there, they used to cultivate the land, and they used to have some goat for milk or something. Now, when they used to sit for meditation, this goat will go and just destroy the field. They will just go on eating all the cereals and other things which are there outside. So they will go on destroy the field. So then the tradition was there that when we are meditating, no one is there to take care of the goats. What they're doing, they will be grazing on our cultivated lands. So they used to tie the goat on a stump and then sit for meditation to make sure the goat is not creating any nuisance. But now they forgot the reason. Now there is no need for actually tying the goat. And there's no need for the goat, no need for tying the goat, but the tradition has followed. So the idea is that's how gradually we just go on following some meaningless tradition. The purpose behind it, we have forgotten. That's the human nature, that our weakness, because of our weakness, or that Shankaracharya is saying the Durvalan Ajitendriyam. Because as we have no control over our senses, we tend to be always moving out towards these sensual objects. We never have that Dhamma. So gradually the idea behind all this tradition, we forget. That the Rajarshi forgets that he's being Raja, his royalty, his being royal is for practicing Dhamma, not for mother. This they forget. They start exploiting. And that's what happened at the time of when Krishna was born. Why this Mahabharata war? The Raja, instead of thinking of the welfare of all, has started exploiting. So it is now again he has to be born again to bring back this tradition. So that's the idea. He's saying that with the passage of time, we lose all these principles behind the idea. These ideas are very important. Even in the modern time, there's a very beautiful conversation between Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore. When Rabindranath Tagore introduced this charkha, Rabindranath was not in favor of it. he had a conversation with Mahatma Gandhi. It's a very famous conversation. He told, what's for? In the present day of industrialization, when industries are there to take care of all the fabrics, can you compete with the world market just with charkha? Well, no, it's going to just instill a sense of nationality. So I'm not actually against this this fabrics and other things, but just to bring a sense of nationality, the idea of nationality. When anyone is just revolving the charkha, they will have the idea that I am resorting to this coarse thing to boycott the foreign thing and to wear just the thing which I have myself produced, Swadeshi. Rabindranath told a very interesting thing. Well, with the passage of time, you're starting this, don't you feel the people will just mechanically go on just revolving the charkha without the idea of nationality? That I have nothing to do, just the way the ladies will be just, doing some needle work. So like that, the charkha will also become just a mechanical work. Mahatma Gandhi had no answer. That we know that how in the passage of time, we forget the principle and it becomes a mechanical practice. And following this conversation, many say there is no interaction, that Rabindranath and Swami Vivekananda, there was no interaction, much interaction. They were a bit antagonistic, but these are not correct statement. After this conversation, we find a wonderful statement from Rabindranath Tagore. He told what the nation needs today is just not some ritualistic practices, some major practices. What we need is really to inspire. And then the next sentence was very important. What Mahatma Gandhi has done, he has inspired the finger of the entire nation. But I do find one figure, Swami Vivekananda, who have inspired the heart of the entire nation. So now we will find this is the idea. That idea is what, it's not a question of criticizing anyone. That what the idea is sometimes we resort to some rituals and we forget. We know that in 2-3 generations, the principle will be forgotten. So the real thing is to go to the principle, not to forget that, to inflame your heart. So from there, if the motivation comes, then everything is on its right track. Otherwise, everything gradually is bound to become nashta. It is going to dwindle in time. So that is going to get lost. So that's the idea. So in the third sloka, then he's saying, Sa evayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratana bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hetad uttamam. Sa eva ayam maya tedya. This is a same ancient yoga, which is the supreme secret. This word rahasya is very important. Why it is secret? That's many say, we had this idea of adhikaravada. In the name of adhikaravada, the knowledge was not transmitted to the entire society. The Brahmins kept the knowledge with them, saying it is rahasya vidya. It is not to be transmitted. And it speaks of exclusiveness. So that word is the word with which many may criticize. That why it is called a secret knowledge. Rahasya vidya. Sa eva evayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratana. So bhaktosi me sakha chete, that you are my devotee, you are my friend. So that's why that I will impart this rahasya, this secret knowledge to you. Cheti rahasyam hetadutyam, the same ancient yoga, which is the supreme secret. I am today revealing it to you because you are my friend as well as my devotee. So now let us try to understand the word rahasya, what it means. So there are so many things, the knowledge. Unless you have faith, first comes faith. If there is no faith, there cannot be any knowledge. Swami Vivekananda, when he was in the West, in one of his lectures, he's saying that you say that the old society was superstitious, that now you are becoming scientific. But the present world is also superstitious. And this scientific superstition is more dangerous than the so-called this superstition of the medieval ages, of the age just before this industrial revolution. There's all those religious superstition, but it was better than this superstition which is at present. What he's saying is very interesting. Well, you people, If I come and say, Vyasa said it, Patanjali said it, immediately you deny. It's of no use. And if I said Einstein, it is the theory of Einstein, of Newton, you never even doubt it. Immediately you are ready to take it even without salt. That's food, we know that to make it palatable, we always add salt. He's saying that there's no need for salt. You simply are ready to ingest it. If just you hear the name Einstein, Newton, and at his time Einstein was not there, he's taking the name of Newton. The idea is what? That the same superstition, if you say just to follow someone blindly superstition, isn't it superstition? Just as he has said, you have to take that it is correct. So, but at the same time, it's very important. What he's saying is not negating that you shouldn't believe. You should believe. And the idea of Shraddha comes. What's the Shraddha? That when someone says that this is the knowledge which is authentic, when I go to the doctor, I know nothing of the medical science. He just prescribes me medicine. He says, prescribes me certain diet, and I blindly follow him. Why? Because I have Shraddha. I know that medical science is authentic. I know nothing about it. And this doctor has studied it. After studying, he is the authority to prescribe me as per that science. So with that Shraddha, I go, and as per his prescription, I take medicine, I regulate my diet, I become disease-free. The same thing is being spoken of here. This knowledge is coming through a tradition. Now, immediately I cannot just explain you the entire details of it. First, you have to accept it with Shraddha, with the faith. Just the way in the school, in the very primary level, if someone asks that E is equal to mc square, unless you prove it to me, I won't believe that energy and matter is interconvertible. This E is equal to mc square, you prove it. What the teacher will say, you are just in the primary. You have to go through these various levels of your learning. When you go to your university, then only it can be derived to you and you will understand. Now you have to taking it as a working principle, and taking it, you have to just go with your studies, isn't it? So Shraddha means that first that humility should be there, that this knowledge is being imparted for generations. It has been proven through so many lives. It has transformed so many lives. When it is imparted to me, I may not understand the intricacies of it, but first I accept it. I accept it, and then when I progress gradually, just like a primary student, when he goes to his PhD level or his university level, then he starts really understanding that how it has been derived, how he has went to that type of conclusion that energy and matter is interconvertible. So he can understand when he's going to the higher studies. First, he has taken it just as a working principle. The same thing in spirituality, that first you have to have that Shraddha. Now, to whom you can have Shraddha? Suddenly some knowledge is given to you. Even now it is happening. There are so many religious institutions. There are so many authentic spiritual leaders. But you will find, you take the name of some authentic spiritual leader, the 90% of the population at the very beginning will brush off. Oh, all these are nonsense. Then how can you impart? At the very beginning, if you brush off that it is nonsense, there is no question of imparting the knowledge. So now you will understand the idea of rahasya. It is not that they don't want to impart. It is the real idea is the others are not yet ready. They're not ready. That knowledge, if I simply go, the one who is not ready, if I simply go and speak to them, it will just create turbulence. They will say, why you are speaking all this nonsense to me? So even in the modern day counseling, the basic idea behind counseling is the one who needs counseling, he should approach or she should approach. Unless he or she is approaching, you are not supposed to give any counseling to that person because he is not ready to take it. Unless he is accepting it, you just go on counseling that won't help. You can take the horse to the water, but you cannot make it drink. That's the idea. So here the idea of rahasya is there, that you are my sakha. That's the idea. You are my friend. You are bhakta. You consider me that I am always there to guide you, and my guidance is going to help you. That's the idea of bhakta, that you are my bhakta and you are my friend. So that's why I can give this idea to you. That's Sahasa Vidya. I just simply cannot just simply deliberately give it to anyone. But as you are my sakha, as you are my bhakta. So these words, you just say, very important. So that's why this now we will understand the idea of rahasya. So this knowledge is secret for those who are yet to develop the qualifications to acquire it. So, but he has developed because he is having that shraddha. He have understood that he is his friend, he is his guide, and he needs that counseling. Because we find in the second chapter, the 7th verse, that he has already accepted the fact. He humbly accepted the fact. What? Karpanya dosha upahata svabhava. He has mentioned already. Prichhamitvam, please guide me. That he is approaching for the counseling. Prichhamitam, dharma sangmudha cheta. That I am confused about the do's and don'ts. So please guide me. Please counsel me. Yes, Shreyam, what is good for me? That please guide me. So he has approached, considering him to be the friend, considering him to be the guide. So now this Rahasya Vidya can be imparted. So that's the idea in the first 3 slokas. Now we will find Arjuna has some questions. From the next sloka, from the 4th to the 8th, we will find that the idea of this avatar, the concept of divine incarnation, that will be expounded. Because Arjuna's first doubt will be that how can you teach son? You're my contemporary. So with this question, Arjuna will be just relating his confusion. And then the concept of this avatar, the God who is the programmer, just like in the modern day, in a video game, you have devised a video game, so many landscape, characters, everything is there. It has been projected from the creator, the programmer. And the programmer finds that there are some, lot of issues. And he himself introduces into that video game as a character to solve all the problems. So it is he who is coming down. So just giving an example in the modern way. So that's the idea of avatarana. He comes down when this dharma gets deteriorated. He has to come and fix the problems, all the issues which has been created. So that's the idea which he will be speaking of from the 4th to the 8th verse of this 4th chapter, which again we will take up again in the next class, because we have there's another seminar today. So we just conclude the class today. So again we will take up in the next class. So with this we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskars.